Hey there, OChemNinjas. As you progress through spectroscopy land, eventually you will get to the full-page comprehensive spec question, where your instructor gives you a page of spectra and says, go. Tell me what the structure is. It's okay if you can't read, this is not really the point. As instructors, we don't expect you to be able to look at that page and suddenly divine the entire answer. We expect you to work logically and systematically. The problem is, on an exam, you have a time crunch working against you. In a previous video, I told you you should start with mass spec and only spend 30 seconds on mass spec. If you'd like a link to that video, I have it in the description down below. In this video, we're going to do the same for IR. You really should only be spending about 30 seconds analyzing the IR, and then you should move on to the NMR, where you should spend most of your time. Come on, ninjas, let's level up. As we work through the spectroscopy unit and we learn about IR, we'll learn lots of peaks in the IR that tell us something about the molecule. This isn't a video about how IR works or how to read the spectrum. If you'd like to brush up on that, I have an entire spectroscopy playlist that I'll link to down below. To be sure, you can find tables and tables and tables of IR peaks, everything in the fingerprint region and beyond, to really diagnose this molecule. But on an exam, I don't think that's a good use of your time. I'd like to show you how to speed run through the IR, extract the most relevant information so you can move on to the NMR and get to solving the structure. So I'd like to go back through all the peaks you likely learned in IR land and separate them into peaks that are diagnostically useful that we should pay attention to, and peaks that are not diagnostically useful that we can safely ignore for now. If you find yourself down the road completely stuck with no idea of where to go, we can come back and look at these non-diagnostic peaks. But when you turn the page on the exam and see the full spec question, these diagnostic peaks are the one you should focus on in 30 seconds so you can move on to the NMR. One of the first peaks you may have been introduced to is the CH stretch right around 3000. Surely you think that must be useful to know there are carbon and hydrogen bonds in the molecule. I don't think so. This is my first peak in our non-diagnostic list. And let's think about why. We're organic chemists. We're analyzing organic molecules. Every molecule is going to have a CH bond. Taking the time to seek out these CH stretches is not a good use of our time. So you can acknowledge it and feel that warm fuzzy that you are still an organic chemist, but let's move on to other peaks. The other region that I would ignore in this 30-second speed run is everything below 1500 wave numbers. That's right, I would ignore the entire fingerprint region. Yes, I know there are some interesting peaks in that region, but they tend to get so swallowed up with the other fingerprint regions that it's hard to tell, is this really an 1100 peak or not? And we just don't have time for that nuance. We need to speed run through this IR and move on. So if the molecule we were analyzing is really a straight chain alkane, the IR really isn't going to help us very much. Noting the absence of certain other peaks can be diagnostically useful, so I might make note of those, but let's move on to other peaks. If we look at the IR of Pentene, the first thing that I would do is safely ignore the 3000 peak and the entire fingerprint region. Yes, I'm aware that sp2 hybridized CH bonds show this little peak above 3000, and that is interesting. But I don't think it's diagnostically useful enough to waste our time trying to parse out which side of 3000 that peak is on. If there's an alkene in the molecule, we'll find it elsewhere in the IR, we'll see it in the carbon NMR, and we'll likely see it in the proton NMR. So our first diagnostically useful peak is the CC double bond stretch around 1650 wave number. This is definitely one I would look out for. If I see a 1650 alkene, I would jot that down in the side margin and move on to see if I see other things in the IR. I might even do a quick cross-reference with the carbon NMR to make sure there are sp2 hybridized carbons in the carbon NMR. Moving along to an alkyne, I would again ignore the 3000 and the below 1500 region. Yeah, I know, the CH stretch for the alkyne shows up way far to the left of the regular CH bond. I also know sometimes students will confuse this with an alcohol, but there's a couple of reasons why I'm crossing it out here. One is we just don't see alkynes that often. And the other reason is we only see this peak if there's a terminal alkyne in the molecule. If it's an internal alkyne, we don't have that sp carbon-hydrogen bond, and so we don't see that peak. One of the things I like to tell my students in IR and mass spec is don't go fishing. I would not go fishing for the CH bond. But I would check at 2250 to see if we have the carbon-carbon triple bond stretch. Because alkynes are relatively rare in spectroscopy, I'm going to put it as a tier 2 diagnostic peak. It's not one of the major peaks I should always look out for, but I need to know that it's there, and if it's there, I'll jot down an alkyne in the margin of my notes. Next is everyone's favorite IR stretch, the alcohol. After we've ignored the 3000 and fingerprint region, alcohols are of course characterized in IR by the great big alcohol tongue on the left side of the spectrum. If I see the alcohol tongue on the left side of my spectrum, I should definitely jot it down in the margins. I definitely have an alcohol in this structure. The last of the tier 1 peaks that we want to look out for is the CO double bond stretch of a carbonyl. Again, ignoring the non-diagnostic peaks, I can focus in on the carbonyl stretch at around 1700 wave numbers in the IR. This is usually a very intense band. We should definitely pay attention to it. It's easy to see and spot, and we should write it down in the margin of our notes. And then we can do a quick cross-reference with the carbon NMR to make sure we have something above 150 in the carbon NMR spectrum. I do want to pause here for a minute and talk about the various types of carbonyls and their IR. I know that you can look at IR tables, and there are different IR stretching frequencies for the carbonyl, whether it's a ketone or an aldehyde or an ester or an acid chloride or an amide. I don't think it's diagnostically useful to try and dig in the weeds to figure out exactly which wave number that carbonyl stretches at. For instance, if you look at these three IR spectrum, can you tell me the precise x-axis value for each of those carbonyl stretches? I looked them up. The one on the top is 1717 wave numbers, the one in the middle is 1727, and the bottom one is 1739 wave number. But could you have parsed that out with that much precision? I couldn't, and I wouldn't want you to, and so I put that in the non-diagnostic part of the IR spectrum. If there's a carbonyl in the molecule, we'll know from the IR, and then we can use the NMR to sort out whether it's an aldehyde or an ester or a ketone or something different. I'll also point out the same thing for the aldehyde peak that shows up just to the right of the 3000 peaks in the spectrum. It's true, it's there. Sometimes it tends to get swallowed up with the rest of the boring CH peaks, and we're already ignoring this region anyway. If there's an aldehyde, we'll know in our proton NMR. I would not spend a lot of time trying to figure out if that aldehyde peak is really an aldehyde peak, but this one in this other spectrum is not really an aldehyde peak. We only have limited time on the exam. Let's get the most important information and deal with the NMR later. The next peak that goes in our tier 2 diagnostic list is the amine peak. The NH peaks show up in the same region as the alcohol, but if the alcohol is a broad alcohol tongue, we characterize the amines as being amine fangs in your spectrum. The amine fangs are usually weaker in intensity, not as strong as the alcohol peak, and they tend to be very sharp, and they tend to tell us how many NH bonds we have. If we have 2 amine fangs, we have 2 NH bonds in the molecule, but a single fang usually means only 1 NH bond in the molecule. So I would look for the NH fangs in the molecule, but only as a second tier. We don't see amines all that often, not nearly as often as alcohols or carbonyls. When we have a carboxylic acid in the molecule, this is another peak that we can look out for. I put it in tier 2 diagnostic list. Like other spectra, we'll certainly ignore the fingerprint region. I do note the carbonyl stretch at 1700, but what characterizes the carboxylic acid is the big hairy beard that takes up nearly the entire left side of the spectrum. If you were to extrapolate, it almost looks like a broad alcohol tongue, but it becomes a hairy beard because it engulfs the regular CH peaks around 3000. So if I notice the hairy beard in my molecule, I have evidence of the carboxylic acid. If I were to see a spectrum like this, I would ignore my fingerprint and CH region, and I would focus on the nitrile peak at 2250 wave numbers. I do need to be a little bit careful because both the carbon-nitrogen triple bond and the carbon-carbon triple bond of an alkyne show up in this same region. There's nothing in the IR that will help us differentiate between the two, but I do want to remind you that a molecule with 1 nitrogen will have an odd M+ peak. So if I see a triple bond in the molecule, I can quickly cross-reference with the mass spec to see if there's nitrogen or not. The final region of the IR I want to point out is the benzene bump region. For this molecule, I would first ignore the fingerprint and the CH bond region. The next thing that stands out to me is the carbon-oxygen double bond and the carbon-carbon double bond peaks. But if I happen to notice the benzene bumps, I would make note of those as well. The benzene bumps are a series of regular, evenly spaced, equal intensity bumps between 1800 and 2000. Not every benzene ring will give benzene bumps, and not every perturbation in this region means there's a benzene, but if I have a series of regular, repeating, equal intensity bumps between 2000 and 1800 wave numbers, I can circle those, make a note on the side that I likely have a benzene in the molecule. If I'm not sure if they're benzene bumps or not, that's easy enough to cross-reference with the proton NMR to see if there are benzene protons. So when you turn your page on the exam and you see your spectroscopy problem, here's what I would recommend. First, spend 30 seconds on mass spec extracting what you can. Then move to IR. Take a first pass through the IR, see if you have any alcohol tongues, carbonyl stretches, or alkene stretches. Those are probably the most obvious ones that stand out the most easily to students. Then take a second pass through your IR, see if you have any of these tier 2 things that are not quite as common. Check for amine fangs, check for carboxylic acid, hairy beards, check for triple bonds, and check for benzene bumps. If you find any of these peaks, jot them down in the margin of your paper, and then move on to NMR. And when you go to solve the NMR, you'd better account for all those things you put in the margin based on your IR. By spending 30 seconds on mass spec and 30 seconds on IR, you have a lot of context and are in a really strong position to move forward and analyze the NMR and solve that structure. I believe in you, ninjas.
Thanks for watching. The best way you can support this channel is to let your friends know about these videos, especially ones who go to different schools. Help spread the word around the country. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe.